Guys, hello. This is
Hello.
exciting because for one, I haven't gotten to talk to Gabriel on a Gabe. I call him Gabe. I'm just gonna not call you
Yeah, I
Gabe.
was about to say that's what I
Yeah,
yeah,
it's so
I'm
weird.
sorry.
I haven't talked to Gabe on a podcast before. So one, this is super exciting. But two, I've never co-hosted Inspired Inc. with anyone before. And like who
Mhm.
would be more perfect than Alex Batts? He's for those who don't know what Alex does exactly, is all the cool stuff that looks like I do. It's really because of Alex. Like Alex is the man. He's literally what Jason Gen X is doing right now, behind the curtains right now. And he kind of does stuff behind the scenes, and he makes sure everything's organized. He makes sure all of our plans are in action. Alex is why Apollo's flowed so fluently. And then we have a copy of his first anthology, Cybersync, right up here behind me. Of course, always printed by Comix Wellspring, none other. And so it's really cool to be co-hosting because we actually did a Apollo City Comics podcast together
Yeah.
before it turned into a publishing line. So Alex, dude, I'm so hyped to do this with you, and with no one else than our dude Gabe. Hello, man. How have you been?
Dude, I've been good. It's so I'm like smiling. It's so good to freaking see you dudes, man. It's like I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like we were talking to each other like every single day and then like we all just like shot out into the stratosphere in different angles and like now you guys are managing comic book printing companies and comic book companies and publishing companies and I'm just like what the heck every time I check in with you guys I'm like oh my god dude these guys are freaking crushing it so it's awesome.
It's insane. And that's kind of why I thought this would be a perfect type of episode to get you on. This is a virtual con. Cons are really where you get to showcase someone like bigger than life sometimes, and that's what panels will feel like to a lot of creators when you go to San Diego, when you go to Terrificon, all that type of stuff. And so panels are a good way to kind of just get a deep dive on like an experience. And so, like you're saying, Alex and I are heavily endowed in like the indie comic book world, with Apollo and CWS and lesser known comics. We kind of run all three without even knowing that that's what we walked into. It was very accidental, first off. But I'm super happy for that. But like it all of this journey kind of started with me and you, and Alex actually was involved with you a few years ago as well with
Yeah.
writing with some stuff. And Digital Lizards of Doom went from like this indie book that you were just trying to like conceive and put together. And now you went from, you were working with lesser known comics, and now you're like with Mad Cave and Papercutz. Like, tell me a little bit about that journey and doing a cool, I mean, we should have dropped a link. We got to drop something somewhere, but I'm doing a puppet show now, which is the coolest thing in the world. I sent to all my friends who have
It's so
kids.
rad.
It's so rad. It's so adorable. I watch it just for fun, just for a good laugh. It's such a great quality show. But like, what's this journey been like for you, going from just like a figment of an idea and now you're in one of the top like true independent like publishers out there that's continuing to grow? What's that been? Tell me about that a bit more.
Yeah, dude, it's been a little nutty to be honest. Like it's like in a good way, but it's been a whirlwind of emotions, man. And I have to like I want to tread lightly with how I like say things because I don't want like to make anyone upset because it's like literally um, not what I'm intending to say at all. But it's like there's so much when you have a lot of passion you really want to like hold on to your ideas you want to hold on to the I guess like the honesty of it the integrity of it and so anytime you make a decision to join a company that's like oh hey we want to take this idea and like move it over here and do all these things with it it's freaking terrifying man and then there's always something you have to give up there's always something you have to give up to do that and so like it's been this weird journey of like really coming to grips with like what do I want like what's more important to me is it you know right telling the story I want to tell or is it having a career in comic like what does that look like and so the last couple of years have been like a total like whirlwind and it's holding on to I've done a really good job of just holding on to DLOD and what DLOD is meant to be and we've turned down like quite a few deals that probably could have put more money in my pocket but um But that's not what Digital Legends of Doom is about. Like Digital Legends of Doom is about giving access to stories that help kids identify their emotions, identify their struggles, and prepare them for what the world is going to be throwing at them later. So Mad Cave has been so freaking cool and so awesome about that, and really worked with me on so many things, and just been super just super awesome with like a lot of my crazy ideas, but also being like, there's certain opportunities that, like I said, that DLOD has been offered, and I'm like, that'd be really cool on like a financial level, but right now I want to make sure that the integrity of these books stays a certain way. So respectfully, we're just going to have to say no to that. And Mad Cave has just stood by me like the whole time. And so they're amazing. It's been really cool. So, but yeah, man, it's been emotional, dude. Like I feel like I could have a better answer for that when book 8 is done. That's going to be, that's going to probably be like my last DLOD book, like, and then I have a bunch of other things I want to go and put my attention on, because like I only wrote 8 books, so there's different spin-offs and things that like that's in the air, but for me, I'm just like trying to stay focused, and then those things don't always happen, and it like you get your hopes up and then you get let down. So it's like for me, I'm doing 8 books, and like everything else is noise. And that's like my attitude. It's like I'm just focused, 8 books, let's get them done. But yeah, man, it's been wild, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for LKC as well. If it wasn't for Mark Bernal, and shout out to Mark, because he's like a brother to me. So he picked me up in a time where, I don't want to get too personal here, but like it was like, I think it was end of 21. I think it was 2020 we started talking, and then it was like end of 21 we started talking about an actual deal. And I was actually in 2020 I was with a different publisher, and I just thought LKC was the coolest thing ever, and they're doing all this rad stuff. And so I don't know who reached out to. I don't know if I reached out to him or he reached out to me, but I was like, dude, we should like do some sort of collab. And then the publisher at the time that I was with was like hard no, and we were super bummed, because I was like, man, we gotta do something together. Like, it'd be so cool to work on something together. And then I got dropped by that publisher, and then I started talking to Mark, and he's like, dude, come over here, you have a home here. And then like literally one of the lowest points in my entire life, and Mark Bernal just like picked me up and gave me a home, gave me a family, and introduced me to all these amazing people. And so yeah, I'll never be able to say thank you enough to him for doing that. But yeah, dude, and that's like, and that's just 2 years ago. It's like there's been so much stuff. So I didn't mean to get so heavy there, but it was just like,
no, I
mean, yeah, it's the last couple of years have been
like
insane.
Praise Mark for like a year on this show. You know what I mean? Mark has done so much. If you don't know Lesser Known Comics, and like if you're looking for an opportunity as an indie comic publisher or a creator, like I think LKC is a great avenue to at least like look into, explore, study, see what they're doing, or at least get involved with their community of creators, because that's what's so great about Lesser Known Comics in general, is that it's created not just a publishing house with imprints like Apollo City Comics and like Moonlayer Studios and things like that, but it's somewhere you could go and you have a bunch of creators that are going to support you. And that's what I think all of us need, is just having that level of support and somebody that believes in your idea. And you have someone that believes in your idea, and that's going to like really passionately push you more than anything else. And I could, rightfully say I'm also a product of that. Lesser Known Comics, helped me out, took me on, gave me some confidence. It's how the punk anthology came about. It's how my involvement with Comix Wellspring came about. It's how me and Alex, actually our meeting, came about last year, and how Apollo transitioned from a podcast to a publisher. That's the cool thing, is that when you go out there and you find the right type of people that fit with you and you're true to your idea, that's when you're going to flourish. And when you're talking about people altering and corrupting the integrity of DLOD, I think a lot of people can go down that way with publishers, with different directions for money, and keeping that integrity is what's important. And I think Alex and I have a very similar background with like our interest, and so like punk rock, sci-fi, passion. That's everything Apollo's all about, and those are the books we're producing. But it came from us believing in each other's ideas and knowing like, okay, I have faith in this. This is something we could build out. And do you feel like Mad Cave has also, I mean, you've said it, just now, like they've really helped you hold that integrity, but like with the growth and your continuous growth, do you believe that's the path you're on right now?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't see, I don't see like DLOD fitting with like any of the other publishers right now, because for one, it's like DLOD is a weird book, dude. Like, I mean, and I don't say it in a negative way. I freaking love it.
It's
I don't know.
wild.
I just kind of, I don't know if I can cuss on here. I'm not sure, but yeah, like it's a crazy book, and like finding that audience, finding the right audience for it was very difficult, and I think we finally like locked that in, and that's something that you know Mad Cave has been super supportive with, and just with other publishers that I've met along the way. I don't see how, like, I don't want to name, and name drop anybody, but just I've been able to rub elbows with other publishers, and recently in the the last couple years, year and a half, I guess, and they have a very specific thing, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Like I'm just telling it like it is. Like there's nothing wrong with that. They know it works. They do it. They do things a certain way because it works, and they know. And a lot of these publishers, I think we forget sometimes we're hard on them, like the bigger publishers. And one thing I've come to realize is like these bigger publishers, their fan base, it's weird. Like this never clicked for me, but their fan base is kind of like they follow the publisher. Like the fans love the publisher. And so the publisher has a responsibility to their fans to make content that they think their fans want, right? And so I've realized that every publisher is so different. And so like I don't see DLOD really fitting in with a lot of the ways like most publishers work now. And I have plenty of other stories I would like to make with some of these publishers. But it's been really interesting, like learning more about that side of the industry, because it's opened my mind so much about like why they do things the way they do. And I was like, well, this book is so awesome. Like, why wouldn't you take this, or, I have so many friends that make these amazing books. I'm like, how is this not on, insert publisher's name here? Like this would be perfect for them. But here's the thing. It's like not perfect for them. And it's not perfect for them because it doesn't fit this, I don't know, this vibe or whatever that they want. And they don't think like their fans would like it. And it kind of, in a weird way, is a good thing, because it gives companies like Mad Cave, LKC, Apollo City, like you guys, it gives you guys more opportunity to take in those comics. And I really think we're going to see a massive shift in the next like few years in the comic book publishing world, because I think, the big five, I think they kind of have, they're gonna do their thing, and they should stick to their thing. That's their thing. But I think not that like people are tired of that. Like I have freaking DC tattoos and Marvel tattoos. I love those books, but I think that there's so many stories that people want to hear that they're just not hearing. And I always use anime as an example when I'm talking about this, because I'm like, I think I know everyone I know who's gotten into anime who always thought anime was weird. They got into anime because anime is telling stories that nobody else is telling. And so I feel like that's something we're going to see in the next coming years with these more indie publishers rising to the top, because I think as we grow, and kind of like what happened with DLOD, that I was saying, is like we're all kind of finding our audience, and there's there's going to be like a wave of less gatekeeping. I feel like in the years to come, with like people being like, oh, like we're gonna market this to this audience and this audience alone, and then like nobody reads it, and they're like, well, I guess it just sucks. We're gonna like dump the book. It's like, no, it doesn't suck. There's an audience for this somewhere. You're just not taking the time to find it. So yeah, I'm like, I don't see how DLOD could really fit on a lot of the other publishers, like DLOD itself. But I'm excited. I mean, Mad Cave is just they've been great, and I can't believe they put up with my crazy ass. Like they, then I'm just like, hey, I want to do this crazy thing, and I'm like, okay, like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. And they're like, okay, let's try it out. It's a lot of fun, man.
That's so cool. That's it's just like really encouraging to see like that growth too, and that there's a path that could be carved for us creators. I think the hardest thing when you go into creation is like, you hope you get attention, you hope you could find an audience, you hope you could get someone that could, push this out there. But a lot of it starts with like self-publishing and just like getting your work done. What
Yeah.
was the first steps for DLOD? Like when you were first putting this together, how did you even get to the point where you were approaching publishers?
Wow. That was probably, man. So I was turned down by 42 publishers. DLOD was turned down by 42 publishers. Actually, it was really funny. I was gonna call. There was like a couple months where I was thinking about making my company called 42 Down, just because like like I had been turned down by 42 publishers. I was like, oh, that'd be a funny like company name. But no, I had yeah, 42 down. So
42
I
down.
had dude, I've had the idea for Digital Lizards since I was 12 years old, I think. It was whenever, actually, no, I think I was younger, because it was whatever year the Truman Show came out. And I watched the Truman Show on a plane when I was going to visit my family in Ohio. And I was a little kid, and like that movie just blew my mind, and I was like, that's so crazy. There's like this guy, and he trapped this other guy in a simulation, and he like doesn't know he's trapped in a simulation. This is so wild. And man, it'd be really cool if this was a video game, though. Like that was like me being a kid. Like, oh, it'd be a lot cooler if it was a video game. And then that idea just planted a seed in my brain, and it's been there since that age. And then I added characters, like only in my brain. Like I wasn't really writing this down anywhere. I was just kind of talking about it, thinking about it. And then around 2014, I was like, I was in a punk band, and we had just gotten back from a tour, and the guys didn't really want to tour anymore. And I was like, man, I want to do music, but I need like, but I got to do something solo. And so I don't want to do like a solo punk band. That'd be weird. I want to play with other guys, but then I don't know. So I got into electronic music, and I was like, what can I do? Like, where can I pull inspiration from? If it's electronic music, I don't know if I want to be singing about the same stuff. So I was like, there's all those characters I've been, I have this whole world in my head. So I was like, dude, I'm just going to call the band Digital Lizards of Doom. And then I'm going to use this band to like promote this idea that eventually will be this book. Like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to freaking finally write this book. And so that was 2014. And then from 2014 to 2018, I just toured with this band. And it was a solo act, really. And it was just Digital Lizards of Doom. It was me and a laptop. And all the songs were about things that happened in the book that I had in my head. And everyone, it's very specific. So like in retrospect, it was probably a terrible idea, but like people will be like, what's Craglodon? And I'm like, it's like a planet. Don't worry about it. And then I just saved and saved and saved. And then I got enough money to like convince someone to do a couple drawings for me. And I was like, here's like, dude, it was so cheap. Like, I don't know if I should say this because it was like, I didn't know anything about books, right? So I was just like, hey man, like I can pay you like $40 for a drawing, you know, and it was like, I didn't know like how much stuff cost. And so like everyone was like, no, dude, I can't do that. Sorry. And I'm like, oh, you know, it's okay. And then I basically, I just saved and got like, I think half of the book done, like the main story and the artwork. And, you know, shout out to Ernie Nahara and Margot Proden because they did the artwork for the first book and they were so cool. And then I just took it to, I was at a convention. It was literally March, no joke. It was March 8th, 2020, which March 8th is also my birthday. So like I met with this publisher at San Diego Comic Fest, and COVID was like, or I don't even think it was COVID yet. I think it was still like coronavirus at the time.
Yeah, it was like a
right before.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
like a whisper.
right
I had a
before.
grocery job at that time, and I remember I quit it that week, and then the next week, like everything shut down. Like I was just like,
Yeah.
I dodged a bullet there.
Dude, it was the weirdest couple weeks because like half the people were wearing masks at the convention
Mhm.
here in San Diego, and then half the people, like guests, just didn't show up. There was I think we had people from Japan and people from Croatia who just were like, nope, just not going. Stuff's getting pretty crazy out there, so we're just not going to go. And then I had Alkaline Trio and August Burns Red and Killswitch Engage were playing like back to back at the same venue, different tours. Like they weren't playing together, but it was like back to back, like night after night at the same venue. So I was all stoked, and I was like, oh, for my birthday, I'm buying myself tickets and then the Airbnb, and I'm just gonna go see some of my favorite bands like back to back. And then I was like watching the clock as we were like getting close to the end of that month. And I was just like, oh my God, don't cancel the show. Like all these shows are getting canceled. I'm like, don't cancel. Like if I could just see these bands one more time before the world shuts down. And it was like, I think I got an email on like the 26th that was like, sorry, like the whole tour is canceled. I'm like, no. But that weekend though, like this is the craziest thing, man. Like, so I present my deck, which was god awful, by the way. Like I know actually how to make decks now, but it was so bad. It was terrible. It was like in this binder, and like it was like half the pages were like not even there. Like some of it was like my drawings, because I thought like a completed story would be better, but no, it was terrible. And so, anyways, so I present like my pitch deck, and the guy who I met with, he was super nervous about COVID and everything. So he was like, I don't know if I think he liked the story, but he was more just like, hey, you know, we need books right now, so you're in. You know, I'm like, all right, really? He's like, yeah. Like, let's wrap this up. And then I was like, okay. And so then he like hit me up like a couple weeks later with a contract. And then I signed, and I was like, holy crap, I just got a publishing deal. And then I'm like, oh, this is insane. And so then I found out like a couple months later, we ran a Kickstarter for the first book. And as we were going to run the Kickstarter, one of the reps calls me and goes, did you go through I forget what they called it, but it was like, did you go through it was like the public awareness process. Basically what happens is like with some publishers, they'll put you through publishers like this one. I don't think everybody does this, but they'll put you through a process that basically looks at your brand, you know, as a whole, and sees if you're going to be capable of selling the amount of books that they need you to sell within a certain amount of time. So like I get a call from a rep, and he's like panicking because he's like, dude, you didn't go through this process, did you? And I was like, no, why? And he goes, oh my gosh, like we shouldn't have signed this book. Like you're not going to be able to sell enough copies. And I was like freaking out. I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, oh my gosh, dude, we're going to have to drop you. Like, this is insane. And I'm like, oh wait, what? He's like, dude, if you can't sell these copies, like you're getting dropped. And I'm like, oh my god. So then I start like panicking. And what had happened is because of COVID, like everyone started working from home for the first time pretty much ever with this publisher. So basically so many things just fell through the cracks. So I just like wiggled my way in to getting, like, they just like, everyone's like, yeah, sure, whatever, and just like signed off on stuff. So I never would have, if it wasn't for COVID, I never would have gotten signed. They didn't want the book. They were like, no, like they're like looking at it and stuff. And they're like, wait, what did we buy? Like this is so weird. So it was such a funny experience. And then sure enough, we actually did really well on the Indiegogo, but or the Kickstarter. But yeah, it's just funny to me, man, because like literally that just goes to show a lot of these publishers don't really, I think, you know, they don't, they kind of forget what it's like to be on the creative side, you know, and I think they forget how to help creators. So it's just kind of funny sometimes I think about it, because I'm like, COVID, as terrible as COVID was, then it, you know, I wouldn't have gotten published if it wasn't for it, which is like a weird thing to say, you know. Yeah. So it's like it's an icky feeling, you know. It's a dark feeling to have, but it's but yeah, I don't know, man. It's so wild, like, and so I know it's like the longest answer to your question, but it's like that's just I got into comics basically by like
right place, right time, you know.
Like by accident.
I feel like that's kind of the answer that everyone sort of gives, where they're like, I mean, some people I guess have a like set plan and are able to like go through and execute that, which like props to them, I suppose. But like I was talking to a friend the other day about the position I'm in and all the different projects I'm working on and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know, I just kind of did one thing and then that led to this other thing that happened, and then I met this one person, and you know, then that yeah, you had mentioned a couple of things earlier, Gabe, which I love that you said that you only wrote 8 books and that was it, as if 8 books of this is not a lot. Like these are also not normal size issues. Like these are not 22-page issues, right? These are full, you know, volumes and stuff. And so like that's a ton. But like that's awesome. And I remember you talking about that a long time ago, and like because we worked on stuff back then, and like I remember you talking about the DLOD and the whole world that you had built and kind of like established, and having this huge like world Bible and all these different things. How you were just talking about kind of the time span and like how long the story had been brewing in your head and stuff, but like how is your process when you're developing that kind of like, this is my outline for my story, like this is the whole story that I'm doing, and like how much has that maintained or changed and kind of like impacted things over the years as you've been working through DLOD and everything else?
Yeah, so I know, man, it's crazy. Like I feel like that was eons ago, but it wasn't that long ago, which is super nuts. Yeah, so it's really cool because book 8, the last book, or the final boss as we call it, for those of you who don't know, like each book is a different level that takes place in the video game. So like book 8's the final boss. Book 8 is like the only book that hasn't really changed. It's wild. And I always thought, I was like, oh man, it's gonna be a nightmare every time I change something. I'm gonna have to change book 8. But like it's almost, like I've said this before, it's almost supernatural. Like it's kind of weird. Like book 8 book 8's probably the oldest too, like in the, like the idea is the oldest, but then I knew how I wanted everything to end before I wrote everything else. So like that one hasn't really changed that much. So everything else has kind of been like a build up to book 8. But a lot of the other books have changed in a lot of ways, but in minor ways. Like for example, I don't know how many people know this, but book 2 is technically book 1, because I wrote what now is book 2. I wrote that one first, and then, but then as I was showing it to people, they were so confused because they're like, wait, why is this character is inside of the robot character? I don't understand. Like, where did this come from? What happened before? Like, who are all these? What's like cyborg cat pirate? How did they all get together? Why are they together? So, so basically, the book wasn't out yet, and so because it hadn't been published, and so I was like showing it to my friends and stuff, and they're like, I feel like you should make like an issue 0. And so then I said, why don't I just make a new issue 1 and make this one the second one? So then I wrote basically like book DLOD book 1 is basically like issue 0 to the not to the, I don't want to say it like that, like not the actual story because it's all the story, but DLOD book 1 was probably the hardest to write because I didn't know. I kept feeling like I was spoiling so many things, and I think once people read all 8 books, I feel like they're gonna see how many hints are in book 1. That and no one. There's been like 2 people who have kind of picked up on a couple things, but like, but yeah, like the whole time writing book 1, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't say that, but then that wouldn't make sense because this wouldn't happen. But then also that's going to be too obvious once people get to book 2 or 3, they're going to be like, oh, I see what happened. But so yeah, that I don't know, that process it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, there's different things, you know. It's mostly like most of the changes have been characters, like scenes that I wanted the characters to do that I just thought were really cool, like. And then we actually get to that part of the story. Like because I have like the whole outline, right? Like, like where everything's going to go. But then once we get to that part of the story, I'm like, oh man, like Dizzy wouldn't do that. He wouldn't say that. And so then I have to go back and be like, oh, but I want him to just kick major ass right here. But no, he'd be nice. He'd be kind. He would lend a hand. He wouldn't act this way. So then I'll have to either write that for another character if I really like the scene, or cut it out completely, which sometimes bums me out. I'm like, all right, I have to save that idea for like maybe another story or another idea later on. But that's probably been like the the craziest part, and also the hardest part, because I don't want to like, we talked about integrity like the beginning of this, you know, panel, but it's like I always want to make sure that DLOD stays DLOD, and it's not about me. It's about, you know, each of these characters represent different emotions and different attributes that we all have as human beings. So it's like, I might want Dizzy to go on. If it's not his time to shine, it's not his time to shine. There's another character, but there's another emotional attribute that needs to shine in this moment, or else the story wouldn't really make sense. So yeah, those are like the things that have kind of changed along the way. But yeah, it's funny. Like I keep reading book 8, and I'm like, man, no, it's like, it's pretty much stayed the same. Like how things wrap up is how things wrap up. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that you hit on a major point that I think is really important in like writing and just creating stories in general, that like sometimes you have to, unfortunately, like kill your darlings in the scenes, or like lines of dialogue or whatever that you're like had the initial thought of whenever you're thinking about the story and plotting things out, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be so good. And as you just said, you get there and you're like, oh, this just doesn't really work. Actually, it would rather be this, or could be something else. That's something I definitely feel a lot. Like I was working on a story recently, and I had the ending page in my head, and it was so certain, and I got to it and I was like, oh, actually this should happen a little bit sooner, and it should end on this instead, right? Or like the entire story being focused on a different character first, but then as I start writing it, I realized that the character they're interacting with and bouncing off of is actually the one I'm like more focused on, and so it kind of shifts to that. But yeah, that's a really cool thing that the ending for the most part has stayed like, you're like, oh, I know I have that North Star, that like guide that I'm going to do. You have, obviously, you mentioned earlier some of the artists you worked with for the first volume. How has it been like collaborating with different people to bring this project to life? Like I mentioned, we worked briefly on stuff a few years ago. It feels like it was like 10 years ago, and it was like 2 or 3, like it was not that long ago, right? But like, how is your process for both finding people to collaborate with, and like how do you kind of know you're like, oh yeah, I want to work with this person, or and then like how that process kind of evolves whenever you are working with someone like on a project?
I always love this question because I'm like, I think I told this to you guys too, like you and Evan. I was like, I try to only work with people who I'm actually like I'm already a fan of. Like I try not to work with people that if I'm not like super hyped on their stuff, I'll just be like, I try not to work with them, I guess, because it's like what happens when you're actually a fan of someone. If someone has a different idea than you, you're more receptive to it. And I love different ideas. I love when people have different ideas. So it's like I might want to do something. I might think something's really cool, but then like, you know, you, Alex, come to me and say, hey, I know you had this idea, but like, what if this happens instead? But because I'm like a fan of your writing, I'm like, oh, dude, this is so sick. You know, like this isn't what I had in mind, but this is even better. And then same thing with Evan too. Like his artwork is just mind blowing. And so I think trying to find people like that you want to nerd out with and geek out with is the best when you want to collab with them, because no matter who they are, like my best friends in the world, we don't always see eye to eye on stuff. So I think it's better to just be a hardcore fan of the person excuse me, that you're with, because then they might have a different idea. For example, Lava or Licorice, that's the name of our puppet show. And my buddy Dan and I have so much respect for him as a writer. He's such an incredibly talented writer. And he'll present me with an idea that just right off the bat, I'm just like, like, I don't know about that, you know? But because I'm a fan of his, I'll let him do it, because he'll be like, okay, man, like, I don't really see where you're going with this, but let's try it out. And then every single time I'm always like, dude, that's like my favorite part of this story, you know? So, and then as far as like finding creators, probably just Instagram and, you know, like deviant art and like all that stuff. And just, I just look at stuff and I'm like, oh, that's really freaking cool. And then I'll like reach out and be like, hey, you know, we should collab. But, and I actually missed that because I haven't done that in a while. We pretty much have all of the, excuse me, so sorry guys. We have all of the artists for the rest of the DLOD books lined up right now. So, but like I said, I'm like hyper focused on DLOD right now, and it's a massive undertaking. So once I'm done with those books, or even like close to being done with those books, I can't wait to get back like on the saddle per se, and just kind of like start working with creators and stuff again, because I'm gonna feel like a massive weight is like lifted off. So I feel like this is like my Star Wars right now. It's like I gotta build like the foundation for it, and then let it go, and then but there's a bunch of other stories I want to tell. But yeah.
That's the cool part about like comics and being creative in general. I think Alex and I have hit this point recently too, where it's just, you know, everyone has ideas, and we've always talked about like an idea is just an idea until you make it tangible and put it, you know, make it real and whatnot. But like, you know, when you're talking about like devoting yourself to something for so long, like, you know, do you ever feel burnt out on DLOD for like how much work you've poured into it and how consuming it has been on your whole life? And this has been your prime project for so long. Do you ever feel like you just like needed a break or step away, or is it something that you're just like, no, I'm just gonna tough this out no matter how brutal, no matter how hard? And like, you know, and if that's the case, how do you avoid that burnout, and how do you avoid from just like wanting to be like, I just need to stop, I need a break, I'm gonna take 6 months, a year off, and just then I'll come back and finish the series? You know, what has kept you going on this momentum?
Ooh, this is gonna sound super cheesy, but like, this is this is what I know I was meant to do. Like I know it's like
No, purpose is
it's weird.
amazing. You know, that's
Yeah.
that's beautiful, actually. Like, not even cheesy.
Like dude, and this isn't a sob story, like I'm not upset about this, but I've sucked at like everything ever in my entire life. Like I loved skateboarding as a kid. I wanted to be a skateboarder. I sucked at skateboarding. I wanted to be an artist. I sucked at drawing. Like I've never been good at most things. Even like school, video games. Even like, there's a reason why I play RPGs. I can't jump and shoot and like do all this
Same.
stuff, but I love
100%.
video games. So I stick to my Final Fantasies and I stick to my turn-based combat games. You know, but like when it came to storytelling, that's the first time in my life where I saw people like gave me a reaction. You know, they were like, "Whoa, this is really cool!" Like, "Whoa, that was a cool twist," and like even as a little kid, and I got into music, you know, like I feel like I'm a decent guitar player. I feel like I'm an okay singer. And that allowed me that was like my first experience telling stories and being able to sell the stories I was telling, which was through music. But that transition into publishing, like making books with Digital Lizards is like, there's been over just in the last couple of years, there's been so many times when like emotionally I wanted to give up. Like I was done. Like it was like I felt like for a long time I felt like I was on top of the world, and then I just hit rock bottom. On top of the world would hit rock bottom, and it was just taking beating after beating, and like having to, you know, live out of my car, and like losing where I was like the room I was living in, and just like, you know, literally signing up for food stamps, and like, you know, bugging my family, you know, having to like sleep on like my family's couches, and, you know, who's going to take Gabe this weekend. This is like in the last couple of years, man. This is like, it's crazy. And so it's been, and then having to like, you know, how do I juggle a job, but then also get this stuff done that I need to get done? Cause, you know, I don't want to work this job. I want to make stories. And I feel like this, like every time I'm at this job, I feel like my soul's getting sucked out of me. But then I want to, and then I get home and I'm super tired, and then I'm writing all night and I'm super tired. So it's like, and I'm so happy doing it. You know, I'm like in my car, on my phone, Wi-Fi, just like typing on a computer, freezing my butt off, and I'm happy. And I'm like, this is how I know this is what I should be doing. And then, so yeah, man, it's like that moment is fleeting, but, and Mark can tell you too, like I've called Mark basically on the verge of tears so many times. And yeah, dude, like, oh man, it's wild. And so, yeah, just that moment of like, I think it's time. Like I've wanted to give up, but I've never thought like it's time to give up. And so, and I've come close. Like I don't even like admitting that. It kind of bums me out a little bit, because I'm like, you know, how could you ever give up on DLOD? But it's just because like the circumstances were so brutal, and your family's like worried about you, and they're like, this isn't healthy. You know, like, why are you're obsessed with this thing? You gotta let it go. You're not making any money. You need to get a job, you know, all this stuff. So it's like, and they're not wrong, dude. It's like what we're doing, you know, as storytellers, we're picking the darker path, man. We're picking the path. You know, you look down that long, you know, fantasy road with all the trees like hunched over, and the rocks, and the freaking wolves ready to grab you like any moment. Like that's the path we're walking. But I think our job as storytellers is to go into those dark places, go into the places where nobody else wants to go, and then find those nuggets of gold, and then bring them back to like our village, and like show them, be like, look, you know, like I went to the darkness so you didn't have to. And then look what I came back with. Like, check out this really cool story. But yeah, man, like, as far as like giving up, it's like, it kind of comes and goes, but I've made a choice. I'm just not, I'm married to this, and I'm committed to this, and I'm gonna stay the course with whatever it takes. But yeah, it's brutal, dude. It's super gnarly.
The comment that Ray just left is very accurate and hilarious.
2020 to 2022 were the official years of indie creators calling Mark late at night on the verge of tears. Mark. Just honestly though, yeah.
Dude.
I mean, it bounces back to just, you got to find someone that believes in you and your work as much as you do, and that's what it could be. A fan, it could be a friend, a publisher, a spouse, and you just need somebody to help fuel you. And I think big reason I think Alex and I vibe so well together is that what you're saying about finding partnerships and creators and stuff like that. It was Alex came to me just asking questions about like, how do I put together this anthology, and it was supposed to be a 15-minute call, and it turned into like a 4-hour session. It was like a great it was like a great first date. We hit it off, and we just didn't want to stop hanging out, and it just every day after that, just spending the night at each other's houses practically virtually,
and that turned into a new company.
yeah, exactly. It's wild, but we'll start to wrap up here. We're hitting the closing time on this panel. But Gabe, this was so informative, inspirational, and it tells you like the journey some of us need to go on, and it varies for everybody. Like everyone's journey is very unique, but it all comes down to very similar roots. Like we know this is what we're here to do. This is like what we're good at. This is what makes us happy. So we'll pour everything into it. Life sucks, work can suck, but at the end of the day, like we're creating stuff and we're doing it with awesome people. And that's what gets us going. And that's what, even on our worst days, like sometimes we don't want to create, sometimes we don't want to write, sometimes we don't want to podcast, any of that, but you go with amazing people, and that's what's going to make it all better. And it's a big thing what this whole entire virtual con is about, is bringing together some of our best friends and just talking about cool stuff all day, answering questions for our community, and bringing together a community so we all feel that support. We had some awesome comments here real fast. We'll run through from, Mark Dooley just jumped in. I know I struggle to find an audience. Mark and D is devoid of guys in tights and cosmic slobber knockers. We deal more with real life people trying to make their dreams come true with a fanciful twist here and there. I'm interested in that. I want to read your book, my dude. And then Chris,
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, honestly, it does. It really does. Yeah, we got to talk later. Mark, shoot me a message on Instagram. I feel the same with video games. Not great, but I have always loved the storytelling of RPGs. Very true. And then Mark also followed up with thanks, Gabe. Nice to know I'm not the only, not alone on this journey. Very much true. That's all of us, my people. So much so. Gabe, why don't you give us a quick just shout outs? Why don't you guys tell us where we could find you, what you might have coming up, and where we could just like shop your work, or if you have any cons coming up too, we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, I think my next con is actually I think I won't be there, but Dan, my co-writer, will be there in Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Book Fair, I think it's called.
Cool.
I think that's in September, end of September, and then I'll be at New York Comic Con at the Mad Cave booth on October. I think whatever the end of October is. But yeah, New York Comic Con, whenever New York Comic Con is. So come say hi, guys, if you guys are out there.
I might be there. I might try to.
Dude, heck yeah, man! Dude, we gotta grab a bite. Cruise out, man.
I'd love to see you again. It'd be great.
Dude, we gotta hang, man. You're always welcome to come out to San Diego too. You got a place to crash? Let me know.
Next year,
Alex. So it's a super small couch, but you're welcome to crash. But yeah, Digital Lizards of Doom, all one word. You can Google it, or if you want, Instagram, or Instagram's probably the best. That's like the thing. I'm so bad at texting. I'm like the worst at messages, but I can't even hide it, dude. I'm so bad at it. Like I try to have these like. My friend was like, you need to have like a power hour, and I'm like, what's a power hour? He's like, you take an hour every day and like respond to everybody, and then I'll like literally do that, and I'll set it up, and I'll respond to like 2 people, and then I'll get distracted of like, oh, there's a new Star Wars movie coming out, awesome, like, you know, and then I lose my hour, and then I have to go back to work. I'm the worst, dude. But yeah, Digital Wizards of Doom.
We put on enable Gabe's location when we con with him, so we're just gonna go. We're not gonna text him. We're just gonna go.
Mark still has my location, actually. Like, he's
amazing.
So I see he has my phone location. But yeah, Dizzy Doom Kids too is our website. We actually have a curriculum. So if there's any librarians or teachers, educators watching, feel free to hit us up on dizzydoomkids.com. I would love to send you like a free curriculum and get you some books for your school or library. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And oh yeah, I guess next in line for books, DLOD books 1 and 2 are out, and then book 3 comes out Christmas, and then book 4 comes out June of next year, and it's basically every 6 months a new book. So it's June, Christmas, June, December until book 8. So yeah.
Nice. Can't wait, dude. Thank you so much for joining us today, part of this first virtual con. It's such a pleasure to talk to you on Inspired Inc. and have you part of this. And of course, Alex, the amazing co-host, amazing everything for life. Just love to have you on as a kind of special guest, but a special co-hosting guest today. And you're actually going to be up next. We have a very exciting AMA, Ask Me Anything, for our production and pre-press team. Jacob and Mary, Alex is going to be moderating that panel. So if you want to know about production, and if you want to know about the nitty gritty about, like, how do we put paper into the machine, anything you want to know, ask these questions here, and we're going to be covering a whole lot more in that panel coming up next in about 8-10 minutes. So stay tuned, everyone. Thank you guys for tuning in right now, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. We have a whole lot more coming for you today, and with that, thanks for hanging. Stay creative and stay inspired.
Cheers, guys.
Nice.